Let's have it.
Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Dennis Adigunloye. This week we'll begin with various deliberations at the Senate chambers. Passed by the Senate was the Real Estate Regulation and Development Bill 2021, which seeks to provide efficient, effective and transparent administration in the real estate business in Nigeria, curb fraudulent practices and to ensure that real estate developers conform with the National Building Code,
conform to international best practices and safeguard the ultimate interest of all stakeholders in the business.
The National Assembly does not have power to make law, to regulate and conduct affairs in relation to real property.
It is the responsibility of the respective states to now domesticate the bill
And prescribe minimum standards for the conduct of the business of real estate and development in Nigeria and for related matters 2021. Third reading taken.
Now, during the same plenary sitting, the legislators paid tribute to late Chief Alata Manga and 4 others who were killed in Takum local government area of Taraba State by Cameroonian separatists. This followed a motion moved by the Deputy Minority Leader, Emmanuel Bwacha.
The Nigerian Army will rise to the challenge and curb this unwanted territorial expansion.
Senate 109 crew caught up with the Deputy Minority Leader, who elaborated on the disturbing developments which he referred to as an assault on Nigeria's sovereignty.
We woke up with the sad news of lives lost in my senatorial district yesterday. And this sad news emanates from the attack on our territorial integrity as a nation, integrity of our national sovereignty, that some rebels, as they call themselves, or separatists, the Ambazona separatists from northwest Cameroon, came in to attack a community in my senatorial district called Manga from Shibong ward of Takum local government, and killed the village head, Chief Alaka Manga, who died along with 4 others. As I speak, some members of this community are still missing, and the entire village was razed down. This community is just 20 kilometers away from the famous Kashimbila Dam project, which is almost 98% completed by the federal government. And it is truly a slide on our nation, and in my own opinion, wherein one person is affected, the whole nation is affected. Unfortunately, killings in our nation today is gradually becoming a new normal. This shouldn't be tolerated, and I want to believe that the Nigerian security apparatus should rise to this challenge, particularly the army, because the local government in question is housing the 23 Armored Brigade Battalion of the Nigerian Army. So I believe they will do the needful to rise up and defend our territory. What motive these separatists have against this community is yet to be known. Could it be a territorial expansionism or for economic interests? We are yet to decipher. But we trust God, the security operatives will come to the challenge.
Now outside of plenary, but to an equally important function of the National Assembly, that being the conduct of a public hearing where members of the public, interest groups and various organizations get the opportunity to give their input on proposed bills. And the Senate has begun the legislative process of reforming the Nigerian legal system through the amendment of 3 extant laws. The amendment bills seek to expand the statutory obligations of the body of benches and to increase the number of law school campuses in Nigeria.
We are approaching this event with a great zeal, in line with the Senate's desire to contribute its quota to meeting the yearnings and aspirations of the people.
Our responsibility as lawmakers is to provide the avenue, enable environment.
If you are also going to have a multi-campus system, we must also tax the state government in each of the geopolitical zones.
There is nothing wrong if this committee can consider in its deliberation the creation of an additional campus in Sokoto.
If there is any need to establish a law school, it must be on need, not because of political consideration. We urge your committee to look into the 2022 Appropriation Act and provide adequate funding for the Council of Legal Education to maintain and upgrade the facilities in the already existing campuses.
We have the capacity to admit up to 10,000 students. All you need to is to strengthen, build more hostels.
The body of benchers, the Nigerian Bar Association, has spent over a year or more working on this bill.
Is to include the Sharia Court of Appeal and the Sharia Court, the Customary Court of Appeal and the Customary Court in Nigeria.
There are provisions of the Legal Aid Council Act that enables Legal Aid Council lawyers to go to those courts.
Propose to the committee in such a way and manner that was specified how the legal aid access to justice fund can be inaugurated.
And to give us more insight into the recent passage of the Senate of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, the performance of INEC at the recently conducted Anambra State governorship election, and the issue of huge turnover of legislators every 4 years, among other matters, here are some experienced senators. Let's begin with the Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Emmanuel Bwacha.
Well, if you recall in the previous act before this one, the parties were given options of either direct or indirect primaries. They were both contained in the act. But this amendment sought to give an iron-cast position on the mode of primaries. The essence is to allow a wider participation in the choice of flag bearers of political parties. And we note with concern the impunity associated with selection of candidates for parties, wherein the few will be cornered and showered favors of monetary gains, and they go to choose people mostly that might not be the wish of the people. In essence, this amendment is meant to widen participation of people in our body politic, thereby promoting the growth of our democracy. which in the language of many has remained nascent. And this is truly not speaking well of us as a nation and as a giant of Africa.
Some people are saying that the direct primary space that comes with its own drawbacks and challenges, not least of course funding, and it's still potentially open to manipulation by money bags.
What funding? If you want to spend money, then you will create a wider circulation of capital. So if your problem is to buy vote, then go ahead and buy every Nigerian that are going to participate in the primaries. This is to overstretch those who think they can throw money around. That is the advantage it also portends, because many people who are going to participate in this election, you'll be expected to give them money. Do you have that money? So if you have that money, that means then you widen the circulation of capital in our nation, which is witnessing great economic stress and dwindling fortunes. So I don't see that as a challenge anyway. Yes.
All right, and so as far as the INEC is concerned, the Senate's now backing INEC to be the sole responsibility of mode of elections and transmission of results.
Yes. Actually, when that amendment was adopted, I was not in the chambers. I went to condole a family in my senatorial district. And when I returned, I truly regretted not being on the floor, because I don't see anything wrong about the electronic transmission. Because when you reject it, that means you have something to hide. And I'm happy that my colleagues had to revisit it, because the decision was unpopular among Nigerians. And so we decided to allow that INEC should have that option. So the onus now is on INEC to protect its image, to know what most Nigerians want. And if INEC tries not to do the right thing, they know that their names or their name is at stake. So no head of a critical institution like that will want to gamble with his image, because after staying there, you are coming back to meet Nigerians. Yes. So that is why we had to revisit the decision.
All right, and on elections, I would assess INEC, the electorates, and issues of security with regards to the latest election we just had in Anambra State.
I think INEC has proven that it can be trusted. There is no doubt about that. I am one of those who say, no, don't condemn INEC. Don't draw easy conclusions that this is what will be the result of Anambra election. And I'm happy that the people stood firm to promote democracy. What do I mean by this? Be given the latitude to go and elect the person you want to elect. Yes, there is no cutting corners. There is no any vote buying or vote rigging or change of figures or writing result and all that. So, and I must also commend the President and Commander-in-Chief, who also resisted entreaties from some of his party members to do the wrong thing. At least he has proven that he has a name to protect, even as he prepares to leave office in 2023. Because you are going to meet Nigerians and you will account for this. So I commend him most sincerely for this bold step in promoting democracy.
And lastly, distinguished, talking about leaving office, some legislators have noted or observed that every 4 years there's a huge turnover of legislators, which is not too healthy or good for the work of the legislators are the government or democracy itself. What's your take?
Well, there are still legislators that have been here for a long time.
But the
majority don't come back. Probably it has to do also with the constituents. If you are voted into office and you are able to justify your mandate, the people will be patient with you. They will always allow you a second time, a third time, even a fourth time. I'm enjoying the fourth time now in the National Assembly. I've been here since 2003. So if in another climb or another community, let me put it more succinctly, in another community, if there is a pattern of rotation that when you do here, it must be here, then you will have to bow to the wishes of such. And in my opinion, it is an anti-democratic practice. Although people may want to let us serve it, this is where merit does not count. And often the times you have mediocrity taking the place of merit. So sometimes some of our colleagues are victims of this kind of setting. The people will not allow you, probably by some, internal dynamics that will throw up candidate for political office. So, but sometimes there are candidates also that will differ such arrangement. If you are on board, you are elected, and they see you performing spectacularly, people will hold their peace and stand for you. That for this one, let there be exception. So it has happened. Yes.
All right. Distinguished Senator Emmanuel Bachar, many thanks for
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
They are all open to a lot of manipulation, but it is the integrity of the people who are operating the process of doing the election. So once we trust the process, when we trust the people, when the people can do it right, then it does not really matter what mode of election it is. So for me, I think we have done the right thing, in the Senate. And even the President Muhammad Buhari once said, give this thing back to the people.
All right, so let's come back to the legislature. So I've observed that every 4 years, the turnover of legislators is so huge. And this does not bode well for the growth of the legislative government or even democracy itself. What's your perspective on this?
I quite agree. It's very sad. It's worrisome. It's of concern. There are some in other countries of the world, where, you have a member of the parliament spending much, much longer time in the parliament. And experiences acquired over time. You see, you should not just look at that constituency alone. That constituency, is aligning with other constituencies in the country, and is also connecting with other countries of the world. Can you imagine, for example, you have a novice who becomes the chairman of foreign relations in Senate, or finance, or banking, and then that person will sit down with somebody in United States of America Senate.
Mismatch.
There's a terrible mismatch. For me, that is what we are going to see, the impediment of an effective lawmaking, effective oversight, and effective of representation. It is not just you come here and then you go back home. Yes, with due respect to every politics is local, but when you go back home or when you go home, you go and spend the little resources that you have. That for me it is not a representation. An effective representation is that whereby you protect the interest and integrity of your constituency. And remember, you are also discussing, also with other either senators or members House of Representatives from other, parts of the country. In the areas of resource control, resource allocation, about land matters, generally, you make law for the federation. In making law for the federation, you must agree. Either disagree to agree or agree to disagree, whatever it is. So it is important that we begin to maintain our members to go on and on to build, a viable, structure of parliament. This thing should come. Somebody who wants to contest should start from member House of Assembly. Maybe 1 term, 2 term, 3 terms, then that person moves to House of Representatives. Maybe 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, then they move to the Senate. Because you are acquiring skills over time, and then you can be able to defend the integrity of your constituency. You can do lawmaking very well. You can do a lot of oversight. You will have a lot of respect, by the MDS. But when the MDS find that you are in office and they can manipulate you, they can play left and right with you, especially with the kind of civil servants we have in this country today, with due respect. So I think, we should look into it. We should try to maintain, the credible ones. I'm not saying that if somebody does not perform, you still maintain him. No. It should be tied to performance. It should be tied to somebody who is doing well, not to go say, oh no, even though he's performing very well, he's doing very well, but we think that we can't, for one sentimental reason or the other, drop him or her.
Let me congratulate the National Assembly for passing the Electoral Act relatively early, but I think it is still late, because they should have passed it so that in most of the off-cycle elections it should have been practiced, the mode of choosing candidates. But I am not in support of the position of the National Assembly nor the position of the governors and others, because my opinion is that the question of the mode of election or choosing candidate for election should be the prerogative of the political parties, to be stated in the constitution of the political parties and to be made in the bylaws and rules of the political parties. That is why the constitution says that no association shall be registered as a political party unless it has its constitution, and in its own constitution it has a democratic process of choosing its leaders and other processes. And it is these other processes that should determine that the political parties should, in their constitution or their rules or their regulations, just as in the articles and memorandum and articles of association of a company, state how they want to do their primaries. It should not be a thing that is done by the legislature by way of legislation.
All right, so talking about the recent Anambra state governorship election, how would you assess how INEC conducted it, the participation of the electorate, and also the issues of security? There was one point where people thought that the election would not hold. How would you assess the general process?
Let me commend His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, because at every point in time he said, on no account should the election be challenged by security, and gave marching order to the security agencies and the police and all the institutions, and they were up to their beat. And of course, commend the armed forces, the security agencies, and then commend the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood, and all his team of national and state commissioners who participated, who took control of the electoral process. This is one of the highest achievements of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Highest in terms, not in terms of not just in terms of the quality of the conduct of the transparency of the process, but daring persons who thought that one way or the other they could threaten the Nigerian state, non-state actors, thinking that as non-state actors they can force the hand of the state back. And so the government, the INEC, and every person were daring enough. And it went to see that the threat, yes, was real, but it was surmountable. So I want to commend them. Then in the results and the processes that are adopted, the transmission of results, the transparency, and of course there were millions of votes in the voters in the register. Yet we saw the actual persons who came in to vote, which is a mention or a direction that something needs to be done about electronic voting and about the imaginary voters. I agree that security may have challenged the number of people who came out for the elections. Yet, it is give and take margin of error. Elect the persons who came out to vote may have been, in actual fact, about 20 or 15% of or 20%, and yet so that can extrapolate the number of voters actually there. So INEC took the exam, INEC said the exam. Sorry, the public said the exam, the law marked the exam, INEC passed the exam.
Well, that concludes this week's edition of Senate 109. Thanks for your time as always. Till next week, I'm Dennis at Digunloy. Bye for now.